Hello everyone, welcome back to our learning video to teach you about Jehovah's Witnesses and the reason why you need to stay away from them. The video you're going to see, it was from Saturday just passed, and they're using different pictures of different trails to show people that without a guide you could lose your life, your loved one, if you don't have a guide that helps you get through of these trails that without the proper time of learning them, any conditions of the weather or anything could cost you your life, which, you know, that's facts of life anywhere, not Jehovah's Witnesses religion. So who is the guides that help Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, it's their elders, their circuit overseer, headquarters, the governing body. But people, you have to understand the reason why Jehovah's Witnesses is losing their lives, because Watchtower has put so much stuff in the literature, it does cause a person to stumble, to quit, or step back to analyze the trail they're going on, if it's safe or was it ever safe to even to go on. And many of us who left this false religion knows that what we have learned when we was Jehovah's Witness, we was were a false prophet, we was liars, we're setting up people to commit suicide by giving up their lives to this false religion. Because Watchtower, they had different people that was from one end of a piece of land, a river, and you got the opposite side where they had the circuit assembly. People trying to cross this river, and the small boats flip over, they lost their loved ones, and everybody died just for a false religion. So how can you walk with God when your God is a false God named Jehovah? Now, we know what Watchtower said about the name Jehovah. We heard the JW broadcast saying the name Jehovah never was God's name. So, people, you cannot walk with the true God if you're walking with a false God, because that's what got the Jewish people in big trouble. Now, if it was okay to walk with a false God, they would never got punished. They would never got cast out of their land. They would never would have been punished if it was okay to serve a false God. So they was walking with the true God more than Jehovah's Witnesses ever will be. But it's their ignorance. They wanted to serve these false gods, thinking that they are better than the true God. And they learn in the hard ways, these false gods is not there to protect you from any harm or anything is coming your direction. And that is the same thing with Jehovah's Witnesses. You are not safe in this religion. You're not safe And these men, they called your guides, all they're doing is guiding you to the death. And they mentioned about one area that so many people has died every year. Well, Watchtower, how many people has died because of your false doctrines, of blood doctrines, and everything else? People has died for your false religion because you put them in harm's way by not letting them sign a card or join the military or anything. You expect them to get beaten, thrown in jail. A bunch of people got raped, murdered, and they was looking at you as a guide to get them through the dangerous trail of life. Why don't you admit, Watchtower and government bodies, you are a fraud? Judge Rutherford turned Charles T. Russell's Bible students into hateful, bitter people that's murdering people and setting people up by bringing them into this religion so they can lose their lives, their loved ones, and everything. And you call this walking with the true God by joining this false religion? So look at the nonsense of this video and tell me what you think of it, and leave your comments. Because people, the only way you're going to learn what goes on in these kingdom halls is by videos and by people going there and recording this crap. And that's what it is. Crap to keep people blinded and brainless to learn. There's information out there can destroy this false religion. And it is 100% truth. So thank you very much for stopping by. And like I said, listen to this video that they had. This elder was giving a talk on Saturday, which some people they do it on Sunday. But anyway, this information shows how critical it is to have your brain working and to analyze this nonsense. We have to wake up and get out of Watchtower's lies. Please, people, do yourself a favor and start doing the real research. Because if you don't, you thought false religion's going to fall. Jehovah's Witnesses is going to be falling probably before some of these false religions. And they are. And y'all cannot see it. Thank you very much, and y'all take care. Bye-bye.
Some of the friends I find out, get some of their hobbies, and we find out some of the friends like to go hiking. Whether it's here in Florida, maybe some of the nature trails, or maybe they go to as far as Georgia to hike the Appalachians. But if we bring up our first image, it's usually nice to have a guide when we go hiking. However, in this particular image, you might not really see a need for that. Maybe you think you can walk down this trail with no problem, and I wouldn't disagree with you. We'll go to our next image, and we see that as the trails progress, sometimes they get a little more challenging. In this one, now we can figure it's not Florida anymore. Maybe we're in the Appalachians or the Rocky Mountains. And there's a handrail, semi-handrail there to help us as we're walking up. If someone had a physical ailment, maybe they couldn't walk this trail. Perhaps they would need a guide. But we'll go to our next picture, and we're going to see something a little more challenging here. A little more challenging. And I can't believe the guy in the striped shirt is taking a cell phone picture of whoever is in front of him, right? That would be the last thing on my mind. But you can see this particular trail is much more challenging in many ways, right? We could probably talk for the full half hour on the craziness of this hike. We'll go to our next picture and get another image from this trail. There's the view if you look down. Now, if you had to hike this particular trail, wouldn't you want a guide? Wouldn't you want to know that the guy in front of you holding your hand had done this 1,000 times, and that in all the times he'd taken people on this trail, nobody had ever died or suffered any major injury? We go to our next image, and we can see the sign. And I think in Mandarin it says, "Say your prayers now," or something like that. Because when you Google this trail in China, 150 people drop to their death every single year. Think about that. What is that, 2 a week? I don't know, 2 point something a week fall to their death. And yet we see in that one image how even the young, old, they want to hike this trail for some reason. But if we had to hike this trail, the point is that I would want a guide holding my hand, telling me we're going around a curve, there's a burst of wind when we go around this curve, so you want to hold on to that safety chain as hard as you can. Maybe he knows that there's a couple boards that are rotten as we go around the corner. You don't want to step on that third board from the right. I mean, if I had somebody to help hold my hand through the whole process, we could probably think that we could get through it okay. But I wouldn't do it alone, and probably you wouldn't either. But in life today, the majority of mankind is doing it alone. Because this trail symbolizes what life is as it progresses. We start out and we're young, our parents are taking care of us. It might be like that first picture where it's easy to walk. As we get to be adults, older adults, grandparents, our friends pass away, we lose loved ones, maybe even children or beloved ones pass on in death. That trail starts to become very challenging. And it could be that the trail we're walking is very much like that trail right there. And if it's not now, maybe in the future it could be that challenging to us. And so we do have a map or a guide. All of us on planet Earth have that. We'll go to our next image to see what that is. Now, our loving Heavenly Father has handed us the oldest document in the world, the oldest holy book that's sustained throughout time. And that guide is really the Bible, isn't it? And we have people trying to figure out how to read that particular guide. We have people who want to assist us in doing that. But the Bible truly has helped man, or at least those who listen to its words and the wisdom found within it, it's helped them get through some of the most challenging times in their personal lives. And so it behooves us to pay it a little bit of attention this morning as we go into the title of the talk, are you, am I, truly walking with Jehovah God? Are we walking with God as our guide in today's challenging world? First, we want to go to Ephesians chapter 4. We're going to notice a thoughtful verse, number 17. And what does it say there for us? It says, "So this is what I say and bear witness to in the Lord, that you should no longer go on walking just as the nations also walk in the futility of their minds." And so the world, the governments, they walk their own walk. They do the best they can with no map or guide, perhaps, and they think and feel perhaps they're doing okay. But let's take a look at chapter 5, just one chapter over, and look at the verse, starting in verse 1. "Therefore here's what the Bible's encouraging us to do, therefore become imitators of God as beloved children, and go on walking in love, just as the Christ also loved us, and gave himself for us as an offering and a sacrifice, a sweet fragrance to God." So this verse helps us appreciate one of the qualities that we have to agree to take on in our lives if we're going to walk the correct walk the correct way, be pleasing to Jehovah. And if you notice in verse 2, it says to walk in love. That's the ultimate principle that mankind is encouraged to walk with. But there's subclasses to that principle. Or in other words, there's other ingredients to that large factor of love that we have to agree to take on in our lives. Now, what is that? Well, one of the ingredients that we can't turn a blind eye to, and 99% of the earth does in some way, shape, or form, is found for us at Hebrews chapter 11. That's Hebrews chapter 11. And we're going to notice verse 6. And there's the ingredient that we have to develop. It's nothing that we can attain quickly. It comes over time. It grows within us. But there it states, "Moreover, without faith, it is impossible to please God well. For whoever approaches God first must believe that he is, and, number 2, that he becomes the rewarder of those earnestly seeking him. Do you notice that? There's 2 things we have to do. Number 1, we got to know Jehovah's there. We have to believe in God. And that's something that nobody can hand you that. We have to develop that through study and observation of the world around us, through study of the pages of the Bible. But notice, we can't just be an agnostic, know that he's there, and that's all there is to it. But notice, we have to also appreciate that he becomes the rewarder of those not just seeking him, but do you notice the descriptive word there? Earnestly seeking him. So we can't sit back on our lazy boy and assume that Jehovah's just going to give us this feeling within our heart. It takes work. It takes some dedication, and it takes focus and intent on our part, action on our part. Notice what happens if we choose not to. Jeremiah 10:23. And maybe fairly quickly, if I mention that chapter and verse, you know what it says there. But let's read it together. Jeremiah 10:23. I well know, O Jehovah, that man's way does not belong to him. It does not belong to man who is walking, even to direct his step. So what happens when we decide to do things without Jehovah? Well, we'll go to our next image. We could bring that up. This is the result of not walking with Jehovah. And what do you see there? We see all facets of some of the major things that have gone wrong and have been going wrong with humanity over the last 100, over the last thousands of years, right? We have starvation. We have certainly war on an unprecedented scale in the 20th and 21st centuries. And then we have bottom right of violence, which mankind has always seemed to have had. So with all these things around us, it really helps us appreciate that, hey, if mankind's not going to do it, well, what about me? Can I personally then choose to walk with Jehovah God? Well, our next image helps us appreciate that throughout the pages of the Bible, throughout the history of man, there have been those who have been challenged by the life around them, but have chosen to walk with God. And when they did so, it proved to be extremely beneficial for them and kept them out of major trouble and gave them joy and blessings in their life. And isn't that what a loving father would want for his children? For them to simply be happy in their life, right? And that's what Jehovah wants for all his servants. Certainly he wanted that of this man here. Maybe you know who that is. But let's take a look at Genesis chapter 6 and verse 9 to help us identify this individual. Genesis chapter 6 and verse 9. I love the way this man is described here. Verse 9 could have just said, this is the history of Noah. It could have just said that, right? But then Moses, or whoever recorded this for us, right, he gives us some descriptive words about Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He proved himself faultless among his contemporaries. And then finally, Noah walked with the true God. So here we have a